Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Live Ones. It is Saturday, October 12th, 2024. I am Big Matt, your capper extraordinaire. The big story today, the NLCS is officially set. The Dodgers finally getting the monkey off their back. 4 out of the last 5 years, this team had won over 100 games in the regular season, had all the money and star power you could possibly want, and year after year, they just flame out in October. 3 out of those 4 years, they couldn't even make it out of the divisional round. The 1 year they did actually win a playoff series, it was that controversial one against the Giants in 2021 that went right down to the very end of Game 5, ended on that check swing third strike that was never reviewed. But they finally did come through last night and shut down the massively red-hot Padres, who finished the season on a 43-19 run and carved through the Braves like a Thanksgiving roast. So it'll be the Mets and the Dodgers squaring it off, and I'll tell you something, I don't know with these Mets and the Dodgers' recent history if the Dodgers are going to be able to get the job done again. The ALCS will be set tonight for sure. Game 5 between the Guardians and the upstart of all upstarts, the Detroit Tigers. They, of the $18.5 million total team payroll, who have been on a magical run after sneaking into the postseason after the Twins and Mariners both utterly collapsed. Presumptive AL Cy Young Award winner Tariq Skubal looks to make one more bit of magic happen against former Tiger Matthew Boyd. Man, I'll tell you, October is sports heaven to begin with, but this weekend is something special. You got Game 5 tonight. You got the Red River rivalry between number 1 Texas and number 18 Oklahoma. You've got number 2 Ohio State facing number 3 Oregon and Eugene today. You got number 4 Penn State facing USC on the road. Number 9 Ole Miss against number 13 LSU. Florida against Tennessee. Kansas State against Colorado. UFC Vegas. So much to go over. This is the definition of a Super Saturday in sports. Let's get right to it. And we are going to start off with Game 5, do or die time for the Guardians and the Tigers, who will go on to face the Yankees for the right to go to the World Series. And I'm going to give you an interesting angle I don't normally do. You have Tariq Skubal versus Matthew Boyd, which on paper is a great matchup. They had this matchup in Game 2. It was great. The game was scoreless through 8 innings. That's to be expected. These are two phenomenal southpaws. So the powerhouse lefties that both teams rely on, like Riley Green, Jose Ramirez, and Josh Naylor, got totally shut down. And you can see that reflected in the game total today. It's an impossibly low 6 runs. But here's the thing. It's an elimination Game 5. The pitching matchup starting-wise doesn't matter nearly as much as it did in Game 2 because what's the first thing every team does in an elimination game? The first time their starters in even a hint of trouble, they go to the bullpen. They use everyone. They empty the arsenal. Hell, the next starters up in the rotation will probably be available in a pinch. It's just what teams do now. And you can take advantage of that with live betting. If there happens to be any kind of scoring early at all, I'm talking about even 1 run in the first 2 innings, that total of 6 is going to be live bet up to 7, maybe even 7.5. Watch that live total like a hawk tonight because if you can grab that under right there, if you can get an under 7.5 at any point in the game or an under 7 after the first 2 innings, take it. Because these teams are going to bring their bullpens in at the first hint of trouble. So that's my play on this game. Watch the live betting. Look for 7.5 anytime or 7 anytime after the first 2 innings. If you see it, grab that under. Otherwise, stay off this game. Neither side is attractive. I'm sure not touching a run line under these circumstances, and the total of 6 is just way too low to put money on. College football, and we're going to start off early with the noon games with Rutgers and Wisconsin. Rutgers is coming off its first loss of the season at Nebraska, but it's still just allowed only 14 points. This is a team that is 18th in the FBS in defense, allowing just 15.8 points per game. Its defense is a monster, and its run-first approach, led by the two-headed monster of Kyle Monangai and Samuel Brown at running back, controls the clock like no one's business. The Scarlet Knights have a kindred spirit across the field from them in the Wisconsin Badgers. Wisconsin is averaging 170 rushing yards per game. It dropped 228 yards against the hapless Purdue last week. Both of these teams play the classic Big Ten style to a T. Their meeting last year sailed under the total with 37 points, and Rutgers' defense and run game has only gotten stronger since then. I expect a rock fight of a game. Give me the under 44 points today. Ball State and Kent State, and these numbers for both teams on defense just seem like they can't be real. Ball State has surrendered an average of 561 yards and 51.5 points per game against FBS competition this year. Why is that defense even on the field? Why does it bother? You can put the blocking sleds they use out in practice up on the line of scrimmage every play, and at least the other team would have to take a couple of steps to get around them. You could put one of those giant banners that the home teams run through to pump up the crowd in the pregame, and at least it would offer the offense like a quarter of a second of some resistance. Like somebody might get a paper cut or something. Meanwhile, Kent State has allowed at least 50 points in every game this season involving an FBS opponent, albeit against much tougher competition. Kent State is 130th in defensive EPA per play nationally. That's out of 134 schools nationally, incidentally. So, yeah, it's bottom of the barrel. Really, the only thing that might stop this game from flying over the total of 59.5 is if the offenses shit the bed. And at least on Kent State's part, I look at what they did against Eastern Michigan last week, and I don't think that's going to be a problem. The Flashes scored in every quarter and ended with 33 points and 446 total yards in the shootout loss. Quarterback Tommy Ulatowski had his best game of the season. He threw for 345 yards and 3 touchdowns. Ball State has been just fine on offense since MAC conference play started. They've averaged 38 points per contest against Western Michigan and Central Michigan. And in those MAC games, quarterback Kevin Samanza completed 51 of 74 passes for 592 yards with 6 touchdowns combined. This total could easily hit 70, if not more so. This is going to be one of those crazy MAC games where we just see insane numbers put up all over the board. So give me the over 59.5 points today. Moving on to the 3:30 games, and one of the marquee matchups today is Penn State and USC. And for the love of everything good and decent, why is this line where it is? USC has looked absolutely horrible against Big Ten running offenses. Michigan and Minnesota combined for 290 and 193 yards respectively against USC. Each team scored 3 rushing touchdowns, and Michigan and Minnesota are the drizzling shits this year compared to the rest of the Big Ten. Penn State is deservedly the number 4 team in the country. They've outscored their opponents so far 172 to 57. Penn State has one of the best running games in the country behind Nick Singleton and Katron Allen. They're not much to speak of at the quarterback position, but they don't need to be with those kind of running backs. They dominate the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball. They will utterly shut down whatever running game USC has, forcing them to rely on Millard Moss, their quarterback, to stay competitive in this one. Moss is coming off the worst game of his career last week against Minnesota, where he threw for only 200 yards with 1 touchdown and 2 picks. Penn State is a big step up in competition from Minnesota. Millard Moss is going to have a long day. Even on the road, getting the Nittany Lions at anything under a touchdown is a gift against USC, getting them at minus 3.5. I'm jumping all over that. Give me Penn State minus 3.5 today. Ole Miss and LSU. We talk a lot about tough places to go and play in football, and one of the absolute worst venues you can possibly catch as a college football team is having to go and play at Tiger Stadium at night. Since 2000, LSU has played 123 night games at Tiger Stadium. It's 108-15 in those games and hasn't lost a home night game since November of 2021. Tigers are 12-0 in night games under Brian Kelly. That place is an experience like very few in America. LSU is coming off a bye week and is well rested. Ole Miss hasn't even had their first bye yet. This was going to be their 7th straight game without a break. Now, those are the intangibles. So let's look at the tangibles now. Ole Miss is number 9 in the country, but I think that ranking stems in large part to a lot of teams in the top 25 having bad losses on their resumes already this year. It's a crazy year in college football. And, just having to have somebody to fill out the top 10, we'll pick Ole Miss. Sure, why not? But Ole Miss hasn't faced anyone of note this year, and the one game in which they did was a loss against Kentucky. This is a defense that just hasn't really been tested by anyone, and now they're going up against quarterback Garrett Nussmeier, who leads the SEC with 15 touchdowns, averages 337 passing yards a game. This is going to be much tougher fare than they've had to deal with all year so far. On Ole Miss's side, quarterback Jackson Dart leads the SEC in passing yards and yards per attempt, but he's really just got one target in star wide receiver Trey Harris. And Harris had to leave last week's game with an ankle injury. He looks like he's going to play tonight, but there's no chance he's going to be at 100%. You give me all of these factors together, and I am jumping all over the home underdog LSU at plus 3.5. I think they could easily win this game outright tonight. Syracuse and NC State. Here's another line I can't figure out. NC State is missing their quarterback, Grayson McCall, after last week's really bad-looking concussion. The total's been adjusted accordingly. It's down to 52 points, but the side is still Syracuse minus 3. Why? Why is it that low? Syracuse has looked great out of the gate. Ohio State transfer Kyle McCord is having a standout season. Honestly, really a second life in his career. He's averaging 363 yards and boasting a 17-6 touchdown to interception ratio. Syracuse ranks 6th nationally in their pass success rate, 11th in pass PPA, and pass at the 16th highest rate in FBS. This is practically an air raid offense at this point, and Kyle McCord runs it really, really well. And there's absolutely no way NC State's defense is going to be able to do a thing against him. NC State has the worst scoring defense in the ACC, and if you know the nature of ACC defenses, you know what a metric that is. But they've allowed opposing offenses to score almost 34 points a game, and it's not as if these stats are inflated by tough out-of-conference games. In their two previous ACC matchups, the Wolfpack have allowed 59 and 34 points to Clemson and Wake Forest. This is a really bad defense that McCord is going to be torching all day. Yes, Syracuse's defense also leaves a lot to be desired, but with the defenses just being a wash and the Orange having the much superior offense by far, catching Syracuse laying a field goal is a gift. Give me Syracuse -3 tonight. Over to hockey. Yes, we've got NHL plays. The season has started. A full slate of games today with 12 on the docket. We'll start off with the early game, the Kings and the Bruins. The Kings made the playoffs last season. They looked good on both ends of the ice in their first game against the Sabres. Boston has looked like absolute shit on the defensive end through 2 games. They've given up 10 goals combined, including 4 to a Montreal team that finished at the bottom of the Atlantic Division last season, had one of the worst offenses in the conference. You can be forgiven, I guess, to an extent for giving up 6 to Florida, the defending Stanley Cup champions, but giving up 4 to Montreal, that's a bad defense Boston has. When that's your benchmark, you're in for a rough go of it until you figure out how to turn it around. That sort of thing doesn't happen in just one game. I'm going to be contrarian here and take the Kings outright on the +130 money line. I just do not trust the Bruins defense with what they've shown so far. Florida and Buffalo, and unfortunately it looks like it's just going to be one more of those years that the Sabres fans are used to. This team just cannot get anyone good to come and play for them. They're 0-3 to start the season. Every aspect of this team's game just looks anemic. Offense, defense, goalkeeping. This is a team that just knows they're one of the bottom feeders of the NHL. And the energy they put out on the rink is evident of the fact that they know it. They come out sleepy and sloppy every game. This is a team that's mustered just 8 shots on average in the first period. They're 0 for 11 on the power play so far. They're only 81% on the penalty kill. Florida, the defending Stanley Cup champions, came out on fire against the Bruins to open the season. They won 6-4. Then they had a letdown on the road against Ottawa where their defense just allowed way too many shots on goal in the first period. And the Panthers spend the rest of the game just trying to climb out of a hole. Sergei Bobrovsky's getting a little up there in years. I think he's past his prime in net. You could say that, maybe Buffalo might have an outside chance at this just on the virtue of that, but just Buffalo doesn't have the personnel. The difference in talent is just too extreme between these two teams, and the Sabres just honestly they have the look of a team that just doesn't want to even be out there on the ice. I'm going to take a shot today, and I'm going to take the Panthers on the puck line at -1.5 for that sweet +185 juice. I think they win this one in a walk. And last but not least, UFC Vegas 98. There's a prelim fight I like this afternoon, and it's the Julia Pilastri versus Corey McKenna strawweight bout. This line opened up with McKenna as a +136 underdog, and it's been bet all the way down to a pick'em. And this is a rare instance where I'm in great agreement with the public. Pilastri has a 1-2 record. Her one victory came against a non-UFC fighter on the Contender Series. She's gotten her ass utterly handed to her against real competition, losing decidedly against Jamie Jasudavicius and Josephine Knutson. This is a woman who cannot finish fights, doesn't try to, tries to win on points with control time instead of strikes, which if you've followed this sport for any length of time now, you know that judges are valuing that stat less and less in decisions. By comparison, McKenna has 3 UFC victories under her belts, and she can finish fights. 4 out of her 8 pro fights have ended in knockout or submission. She beat Miranda Granger with a Von Flute choke in her most recent victory. I honestly think her odds were only as low as they were owing to a couple of losses on her record. She lost to a first-round armbar from Jacqueline Amarim in her most recent bout. Amarim, however, is an absolute beast at 9-1, who's won nearly every pro fight she's ever had with a submission. So, Pilastri is nowhere near that level of competition. I'm taking Corey McKenna to win this one today. It's probably going to go to a decision, but I think McKenna has way more avenues to get points than Pilastri does. Pilastri's way of doing things is a dying breed in the MMA. This is a good price at near even money, so give me Corey McKenna to win today. That is all for today. 9 picks. It's a huge board today. It is the genuine definition of a Super Saturday. Everyone bet safe, stay safe. Follow us on X at Live One Sports. Check us out on Roku and Fire TV at the Live Ones. Have yourselves a great Saturday. I know I am going to enjoy myself, and I will see you next time.